Well, 4 Liberal cabinet ministers have informed the Prime Minister they will not be seeking re-election. Carla Qualtrough, Marie-Claude Bibeau, Dan Vandal and Philomena Tassi will all be replaced in a cabinet shuffle in the coming weeks. Their departures come at a turbulent time for Justin Trudeau, as an internal Liberal revolt is brewing against his leadership and expected to come to a head at next week's caucus meeting. Carla Qualtrough is one of the cabinet ministers who is not seeking re-election, and she joins me now. Minister Qualtrough, welcome back to the show. It's good to see you.
Bill, thanks for having me.
So tell us, why have you chosen not to run again in the next election? When did you make up your mind?
First of all, very difficult decision, as you can imagine. I have thoroughly enjoyed and taken so seriously and considered it such a big honor to have had this opportunity. But it's been 3 elections and it's been 9 years, and I just think it's time to move on. It's been undeniably hard on my family. And I've asked a lot of my family over these past 9 years. When I started this, my kids were 2 and 4. Now they're 12 and 14, my goodness. And there's been a lot of time away, a lot of goodbyes, a lot of public attention. To be honest, there's been increased toxicity and hostility directed at me and my kids, and it's taken its toll. We made the decision in 2015 as a family to do this, and now we've decided, you know what, I want to be home with them during their teenage years.
The job is hard enough. The demands of being a politician, just managing your riding, managing your cabinet portfolios, and you've had a couple of them through difficult times like the pandemic, the time away from the family and the travel, but then you throw that toxicity on top of it. And it's especially bad for women in politics, Minister. I think it's safe to say. I mean, how much of that was a factor here in your decision? Because we've talked to a lot of women on the show who've decided they're out because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I'm not sure I wouldn't frame it as not worth it, but there's been a cost. You know, as I've gone through 2015 to 2019 to 2021, it's torqued up. The boundaries aren't what they were. I mean, I can tell you 2015, 2016, I'd be in my community and someone might come up to me very frustrated and say, I'm so mad at what you guys did. Can I make an appointment to talk to you about it? And I would set them up and we'd meet in my office and we would go through difficult conversations, but there was always that brown boundary. And, you know, 2019, then 2021, now it's very much, there's no boundaries. I get accosted in a Walmart, or my kids and I are buying Slurpees at 7-Eleven. I get screamed at and we have to call the police, or like, there's just no boundaries for my family. And as my kids have gotten older, and I'll tell you, even yesterday when I announced, I had to tell my kids to stay off social media because of what was being directed to me, and just the hatred and the threats and just everything that was being said about me. I just didn't want them to see it.
The 7-Eleven buying Slurpees and having to call the police. That's a thing that happened to you. You're not sort of like using that as an illustrative example. This actually happened.
My daughter who has a massive anxiety disorder on top of all this, she did a whole ballet class, and that was a big deal for her. And we went to buy Slurpees. So she was younger in her ballet tutu, and we went into 7-Eleven, and a guy, confronted me. I tried to de-escalate it. He then turned on Jessica, my daughter, and started, your mother should be in jail, and she and so the person at 7-Eleven didn't know what to do. So I'm sorry, I'm shaking thinking about it. But so I went out to my car and we called the police and told them what had happened. But it was a series. It was in Walmart. It's happened in Tim Hortons. And now I don't go into 7-Eleven with my kids, right? I just send them in to buy their own Slurpees because it's actually safer for me not to be with them in that space. Or that's what I feel like. It just heightens your awareness. You change your outlook on what's safe and what's not safe.
I mean, I've got 2 boys, 10 and 7, and I've kept their pictures off social media so nobody can identify them and these things for similar reasons. So it's not the same, but you have the same concerns, right? So do you hope in your post-political life, Minister, that it gets better, that it's easier, because that not being in power?
And to be honest, I'd like to talk about it more when I'm out of politics. Like I've made this kind of decision as a family not to bring forth every time this happens, but I think it's an important conversation because we want people in office. We want women, we want parents, we want diversity in our elected officials. And if if these are the kind of considerations you have to put into play, it will deter, and it would be such a shame if we didn't nip this right now. But you know, the other big thing too is it's just been 9 years, right? It's been 3 elections. For me and my family, it was an 8-year commitment. We have always lived in sports cycles, so it was 2 Olympic cycles we were going to do this for. I came, I conquered. I'm proud of what we have accomplished, and now I'm excited to see what's next.
Yeah, and running again is potentially signing up for 4 or 5 more years, depending on how it goes. So, you know, that is the horizon you have to consider. So you've told the Prime Minister you're not running again. There's going to be a cabinet shuffle, as you know, and you will no longer be a cabinet minister probably at the end of that cabinet shuffle, because they would probably want to move people in who are staying. Which leads me to what's next for your party and the Prime Minister, because as you know, there are challenges inside your caucus right now. Mark Miller was very critical today of the people who are collecting signatures and getting ready to try to force a leadership change, calling it a passive-aggressive, weak type of display of questioning the leader. They owe it to tell him to his face. It makes this group look horribly entitled and worried about their own futures. I don't know if you want to be as critical as Minister Miller, but I wonder, what are your thoughts on what is happening inside the Liberal caucus right now?
Well, first of all, I don't necessarily disagree with anything Mark said in what you've just quoted. I think that there are conversations to be had, but there's a place to have them, and that's in caucus. And there are many opportunities for Liberal MPs to voice dissent and differing opinions, whether it's in caucus, whether it's directly to the PM and cabinet, whether it's to the party leadership. And, you know, first of all, caucus has to be that place, right? And the more we can ensure that those conversations are kept within that place, the more frank and candid we can be. And one of our challenges as a group is people have been talking and leaking. And so when you get up to the mic wondering if someone's going to tell somebody what you're said, you comport yourself differently and you're not as honest and frank. And the trickle-down effect of that is cabinet doesn't hear the candor, and we can't then course correct. The PM doesn't hear that because we're all so worried about who's going to be out there speaking about what. I actually think it's terribly disappointing. I don't think it's good for the party. I don't think it's good for the government. I think it's distracting, and I can see why Canadians would wonder, if we don't have confidence in ourselves, why they should have confidence in us. I just think it's a shame. I think there's listen, I have not always agreed with every decision we have made, and I have always found a way privately behind scenes to get my views, to get the views of Delta across in a way that isn't publicly airing laundry.
So you said you thanked the Prime Minister in your statement for trusting you since day one, because you've been in cabinet since day one. Yep. I know you support the Prime Minister. You're loyal to the Prime Minister and think he should stay on and run again should he want to. What do you think he should do to deal with these challenges inside caucus? Assuming I'm characterizing your position correctly, Minister.
You absolutely are. In fact, let me be very clear. I believe the Prime Minister has the best interests of the country and the Liberal Party at heart. And I think, you know, making big, difficult decisions means having frank conversations. And I believe that he's listening to what people are saying. That, for me, that's the starting point. I actually also think the Prime Minister has very good judgment. And I've seen him make very difficult decisions. And for me, my role in this is to give him the best advice I can give, candidly, frankly. And I do. And we all do, but you're not going to get from me what I tell my boss behind doors, just out of a courtesy and out of a professional respect for his role and the way this whole thing has to work. It's too bad it's going on publicly, is what I would say. I wish people would respect that there are better ways of getting their messages across. And if the goal is to I don't even know how I would say it properly, David, but if the goal is to kind of undermine Canadians' confidence in who we are and what we do, that might be being achieved. But if the goal is to really have a candid conversation about the future of our party and our leadership, let's do that in private and show each other some respect. Well,
what's your sense, Minister? I presume because you're a cabinet minister and known to be loyal to your boss, as you called the Prime Minister, that you would not have been approached and would not have been asked to sign on to anything. So no. What's your sense of how big this movement is and how serious it is in terms of challenging Justin Trudeau's leadership?
You know what? I actually don't have a very good sense of that for the reasons that you have said. It's pretty well known that I have a pretty strong loyalty to the boss, which again, like you said, doesn't or like I said, I apologize, doesn't mean that I don't challenge and I don't lose arguments and don't always get my way. And it's for all of us. Like, we're all very strong-minded, opinionated people that are around these conversations. I don't know, to be honest. I wouldn't want to speculate, because I think we should wait and see what actually happens when people have to look each other in the eye and be held and say what really is on our minds. And I just hope people show each other the respect to do that.
I think it's going to be a pretty remarkable caucus meeting, one way or another, on Wednesday. Carla Qualtrough, I want to thank you for joining us, and I hope after your political career you can go into that 7-Eleven with the kids, because you should be able to do that, and nobody deserves that harassment. Thanks for talking to us today. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much, David. Take care.